Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, I'm already a day behind. I kind of expected that was going to happen, but it is day two of RPG A Day 2020, and day two's prompt is the word change. And so I was going to talk about how my gaming has changed over the many decades that I've been playing role-playing games. I started, as I've said in many of my other, previous videos, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in 1977 or 78. Was never quite sure which box set I started playing with because it belonged to my friend. But the first box set that I owned was the magenta box, the Thomas Moldvay edited box set. And then around 79 or 80, my gaming group, which was about roughly five friends at any given time, usually four, but sometimes five, we shifted to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, and we picked it up there. From 80 or 79, 80, 81, somewhere in there, we added a few more games that we were commonly playing, such as Call of Cthulhu. We played TSR's Conan RPG. We played Twilight 2000. We played Villains and Vigilantes. We played Star Frontiers. There were a number of tabletop RPGs that we were playing at the time. Around that same time, it was really a great time for gaming, the late 70s, early 1980s, because around the same time, we had the introduction, or at least the availability, a easier availability of computers, and then later gaming consoles, in our homes as well. And RPGs started making their way, to the computer. So, one of the first games I remember that was an RPG, was that Dragon one on the Apple IIc, I believe. That was a very difficult game to actually. You were a stick figure going and fighting a dragon that looked like a chicken, and very difficult game. A lot of fun to play, and as the computers and the gaming consoles started to evolve and become much better, many of us started playing the games on the on the computers and the gaming consoles. But we still managed to get together and play the tabletop as well. And those were running at the same time. So as the technology was changing, as the times were changing, our gameplay, was likewise changing. By the time I graduated in 85 from high school, and I started going to college, by around 87 through 89 or so, my player group started drifting apart. Some went off to college, one went into the Navy. I was, still, more focused on, working and going to school myself during that time period. And my gaming had shifted away from tabletop RPG and more towards the convenience of console RPGs and computer-based RPGs. Come 1990, now I'm couple years out of high school. I'm 22 or 23 years old. I entered the military. I'm not playing, any tabletop RPGs anymore, and I'm strictly, involved with the computer RPGs and and occasionally some console RPGs. I never graduated beyond the PlayStation 2, so that was the last gaming system that I actually played. So after that point, I would say from from roughly 1993 or 94 and beyond, it was strictly whatever RPGs I came across on the computer, and many of those titles that you're most likely familiar with as well. So the Ultima Online, or Ultima, just the game itself, Might and Magic. Bethesda started to release its series of Elder Scrolls games, and those became very, very dominant. Then in the early 2000s, we started getting the massively multiplayer, online role playing games, such as, not Elder Scrolls, EverQuest and World of Warcraft and Star Wars Galaxies, and and so on and so forth. There's literally hundreds of different titles of MMORPGs, and still some of the single player RPGs that are developing, through through the early 2000s, and even, moving all the way up to today, that there are still games being released that are either single player or multiplayer or massively multiplayer on the computers, that are all RPGs, that still adhere to the fundamentals of RPGs. That you can look and see how they're connected to the older tabletop RPGs. Around 2015, I started to become not so much disenchanted, but I've just been played out on many of the MMOs that I was playing, and I started taking a look again at some tabletop RPGs, and I changed once again, and now I'm much more focused on reading and writing and playing tabletop RPGs, but I have been throwing a few computer RPG gameplays in there as well. So that's once again another change that I'm going through, where I'm mixing it up a little bit more than I was. There was a good 15-year span where I was just doing one type of gaming, through one type of mode. And now it's, a little bit more of a mix. Change is something that in our hobby, we have seen these long stretches of time where we kind of get put into like a niche of its own, and then as technology catches up, and as we as a hobby move towards different areas, we're changing along the that's the a human condition. Is change is a human condition. It's something that we're constantly being confronted with, and sometimes change is good, and sometimes change is unnecessary. Other times change has no impact on us at all, and sometimes change is not a good thing. I have seen in our hobby changes that I'm, not too thrilled with, not happy with, and not willing to, get involved with. There's certain modes of gameplay and tabletop that it's just not appealing to me. So I'm not really into a highly narrative role play where you're using character voices and such like that. I've never been that kind of a player. So some change is it's perfectly okay to say, I'm not willing to, match up with this new change that seems to be a trend. I've never been much to, latch on to trends just for the sake of change. Change for the sake of change is generally not a good idea. But, but hey, everybody's experience is different from others. So, so yeah, change is a prompt. I've made a number of changes throughout the 40 some odd years that I've been playing RPGs, and I fully expect that in the months, years, and decades going forward, I will probably still continue to make a variety of changes in gameplay and or in the means of interacting with other players, as we're doing right now. I mean, the virtual tabletop is something that many of us are having to resort to because of the current COVID crisis and shutdowns, and many of the gaming stores that we might have gone to play in person are either closed or have unfortunately gone out of business. And so we're playing more online than we might have expected to have been doing so even just a few months ago. As far as conventions are concerned, I mean, a big change in the convention scene is that there's a lot more virtual conventions, and that's a change that I think is going to last for quite some time, if not become at least a new part of gaming conventions going forward, that may not, revert back to strictly in-person, convention play. So, and I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm hoping that the virtual conventions continue to be something that that goes forward and doesn't stop just in case this pandemic will eventually come to an end. And I'm hoping that we don't change back to only having access to conventions in person, because it really does open up the possibilities of going to many more conventions than we might have done so previously. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And if you have any comments to leave about this particular prompt or anything else on the channel that's of interest to you, please leave your comments below, and I almost always respond to them. And you just stay safe out there. Continue playing. Continue following all of these different RPG a day videos that are getting put out there. I know there's quite a lot of us actually doing it, and I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. You'll have a great afternoon.